What's up, everybody? I am JD. I am joined here in Kingston and Lav. We are here to talk about a new series that has come out in the last couple of years that I got caught onto a couple months ago. There's 7 books in the series, and the guy that writes him is his name's Aleron Kong, and he is a freaking machine when it comes to writing. I mean, it's book after book after book. Right now, there's 7 total. We are going to just talk about the very, very first book of the series, which is called The Land, The Founding, Chaos Seed, Book 1. What I want to do right now is I'm going to mute myself, let my guests introduce themselves, and while they introduce themselves, I want them to give not any details of the book, but their overall feelings of the book, how they liked it, what they liked about it, and then we'll dive into the actual stories. So Lav, since you were the last one to read this, why don't you go first?
All right, guys. So I'm Lav or Laving Shadows. When I first heard about this book, I was kind of interested but hesitant because I don't play any video games at all. And I wasn't sure how I would do with the book that was kind of a central theme of this RPG, but I loved it. I'll get more into why I loved it, but I really, really loved it. So I think even if you're someone who's not a gamer, you could find something to love in this book. So that's pretty much how I felt about it.
I'm assuming you want me to go next?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, what up, YouTubes? Lord Commander AK. And yeah, JD had actually told me about this book a while ago, and I had started it, but then, you know, life happens, and I stopped. And so a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was more than a couple weeks. Anyway, he was on his channel, and he was playing a couple of chapters, and that reminded me I need to go back and finish it. And I blame him for the late nights of staying up, because once you start this thing, you really can't stop until you're done. Like, it's very fast paced. It's an adventure book that reads like a video game, and if you play RPG games, you'll very much enjoy it. Even if you don't play RPG games, though, you're still going to enjoy it. It's just a fun adventure to go through, and we all like high fantasy. It's very high fantasy. Pixies, elves, gnomes, goblins, magic villages, and all this awesome stuff. So if for whatever reason you have been failing life and you have not at least read one chapter, then I highly suggest you do so.
Yeah, my overall, when I first heard this was, like I said, a couple months ago. Man, I was looking. I hadn't gotten into any RPG lit. I didn't know how they would work. To me, I didn't understand how it would make sense. And I was like, screw it, I'm gonna try one. And the first one I downloaded was good. Don't get me wrong, it was good. The narrator was kind of meh, but the story of itself was good. And then it goes suggested, before I could find the second book, it said The Land. So I clicked on it, and Nick Podell, his voice acting is freaking phenomenal. The guy is a genius when it comes to character voicing. Like, if anybody should look up to, if you know, Roy Treese, this guy has some voices that are awesome, and I've got him on a different story where he has a totally different set of characters with totally different voices. Like, the man's that good. So he makes this really, really, really well. But also throughout the story, you're watching a guy that's been taken and put into this video game, which isn't a video game, and I'll get into that in a minute. But you get this whole life story journey of him having to grow, him having to adapt, him having to change to the world that he's in. Because if he doesn't, his life won't work. So it was just a really, really good overall story, and I was just kind of amazed by it, and I just kept buying the next one and buying the next one and buying the next one. I got addicted really quick to it, and I blew through them, and then I went back and re-listened to them again. So it's just one of those stories. It's really, really phenomenal. So we'll get into this. The very first chapter of this book is called The Dark Court. And what we learn is the Dark Court and the Light Court have been basically exiled by the universe into this little containment of magic to where they can't really have much influence on the people. Through it, the Dark Prince has figured out that he can manipulate people by making this video game. He's watched people for years and years and years and years and years, and he's been waiting. And they finally get like electricity, and then they make video games. And he learns that people love video games, which isn't a lie. People love video games. That's just a proven fact. So he makes this video game, The Land. Through it, he realizes that people will sign their souls away for basically nothing. He needs this power to be able to unlock and get free, basically break the prison to be able to get free. So he has figured out if the mankind has a seed of chaos in him, and he needs lots and lots and lots of these seeds, and he's getting them basically, you know, through deals and whatever, because this day and age, people don't believe in God. They don't believe they have a soul. They don't believe in any of this. So they just don't care. So they sign it all away. And so he gets it. Through the video game, he can get more. Now, he is playing the game really well. He's doing a very, very good job. And I liked this chapter. So let's start with Alicia Kingston, because you were really intrigued with the Light and Dark Court. But just stick to this one. We'll talk about other books in other times.
Yeah. The Dark Court, first of all, I found it interesting that they were the first chapter. And it's fitting that they are, because like JD said, they're basically the ones that created this whole construct, this whole world to bring humans into. That isn't to say that the world doesn't have its own humans. It does. But Earth, humans from Earth, we're the destructive chaos seeds that need to come in and destroy things so he can free himself. It intrigues me because it almost seems like they're just this weird mutant satanic cult or something. And I honestly would like to see them on screen just to see how they set up. Like when you listen to the thoughts of the prince, sinister isn't really the right word, but something in that category is what he sounds like. Almost like if you've seen Hellboy 2, the Prince of the Elves, that was the main villain in that story. I visualize him when I think of the Dark Prince. And I wonder what exactly happened in his past. That's a story I really want to see. What was their past that they got kicked out, exiled from everything? And it seems like they've been there for millennia, well, millennia upon millennia of years. And he basically, you know, he gives the rundown, same rundown that JD just gave. And he's the one, I think, that brings you into the story first. But I don't know that I dislike him yet. Like the way it's set up, it seems like he's supposed to be evil, but there's a little something extra there that they haven't said just yet. So we don't hear a whole lot about the Dark Court. There's this chapter, and I think maybe one other in the whole book where they're mentioned, and that's the intrigue that draws you in. There really isn't that much to say. Too much more to say about them. So like I said, they're not there a whole lot. You just know they're there and they're pulling the strings, or well, some of the strings.
Go ahead, Lev.
Okay, so like I said, I was hesitant about the book, slightly hesitant. I mean, you and Alicia told me it was good, and I kind of trust your judgment. So, but the prince, unlike you, Alicia, I already know. I love this dude. Like, he me.
That is not even surprising.
Yeah, not even surprising.
Oh, love always loves the bad boys.
That's why my life's a mess. But anyway, he hooked me. Like that whole story hooked me. The whole that he was just bored of this existence. Like I sympathized with him right away, even though his plan is basically to destroy everything. But I don't know. I've wanted to destroy things when I'm bored, so I guess I sympathize. But have you guys ever read that series Everworld by I think it's K Applegate. I think it's the author.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, it's like a young adult series, and it has sort of the same basic concept, except instead of RPG, it's kind of like a witchcraft thing. And instead of it being kind of like, I guess this kind of dark court vibe, it is like mythology. And I loved that series as a teenager. So when I started listening to this book, I was like, oh, this is my vibe right here. I really dig getting taken from our regular world into like our fantasies and seeing how we would adapt, I guess, if we actually got our fantasies. So yeah, the Dark Prince hooked me, the whole storyline hooked me, and then the build up of the rest of the characters kept me. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that chapter.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens when we get more introduced to the dark and light chords. Like we get snippets throughout the other books, but like I said, they're just snippets. You get like this basic breakdown, and then it moves on to the book, and it's like that in every book. So it's just that amount where you're like, wait, what? No, I want more. So you have to go to the next book to get more. All right, so let's move past the dark court, and we move into the prologue of the book, and we are introduced to James. James plays a character named Silk in the land. He's a rogue, which he never really wanted to be a rogue. He just kind of did it because it equalized out the party group that he was with. But he also admits that he has other accounts where he's got, you know, characters that wield magic, lightning, fire, whatever. When we catch them, they are breaking into the Castle of Transition. Now, this castle, nobody knows about it. It's not on Wiki. Like, people have been looking. Nobody knows about this castle. Like, they've been looking for it, and they can't find it. Well, this group of people find it, and they have just enough magic to hold the barrier open for Silk to sneak in. And, like, the first thing he does is, like, pick up 2 golden candlesticks, and everybody's going, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, they start cussing him out. And they're like, no, you need to keep moving along. There should be some badass freaking loot in this place and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, one of the high elves that he's playing with, she gives, it's like the sight. It's like magical. It's where everybody can see what Silk is doing. And so he knows this, and he looks down and scratches his balls because he's a smartass and he's an asshole. And that's why I really like this character, James. His whole attitude towards, he's just a smartass. He likes to joke. He likes to have fun, and that's what he does through this whole story. So he's kind of looking around, and he can't find any loot. Well, he finds his rune stone, and this is where the story starts to take off. And he's like, what do I do? And everybody's like, oh, go to this, go to this. He's like, should I touch it? And everybody's like, what, get down tonight, show a little love? And they kind of play off of each other for a minute. They're like, no, really, touch it, touch it. So when he touches it, this dark voice comes over and asks if he's like the leader of the people and all this other stuff. And I'm guessing that's the prince. That's a guess of mine. I'm really hoping that's who it is. But he asked, and thrice heard and witnessed. In the land, words are not wind, words have power. So when he hits this, everything flashes white. And then we go into the next chapter. So with this, I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to pass it over to Love and let her continue where I just left off. What did you think of how this chapter went with him being a smartass basically to his party group?
Well, to me, he was likable right away. And then they show kind of his flaws, I guess. In this chapter, they show how he's kind of a bit of a goof off, I guess, and pretty greedy. But they also show his really likable side, and I like how they transitioned him into this, I guess, plane of existence or whatever that they're trying to get him into. And that whole 3 times that he had to say yes 3 times, like sounded like such a devil's pact. I was just like, oh my God, he just sold his soul. So I'll leave it there.
There it is. Not even 20 minutes.
Nothing's gonna happen. There it is.
All right, Alicia, why don't you continue?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I thought the transition was pretty fun. James is basically a dude, bro. He just wants to go through, do what he wants, have his fun. Like, stuff doesn't get real until he gets hurt for the first time. And I don't think JD mentioned this, but in his real world, they're in like year 2027 or 2037 or something. They are far beyond our technology. Like the virtual reality they have, that's what the land is for the video game. It's virtual reality, and they have sensors to where you can actually feel pain, almost like a rumble pack for a controller. They basically have that for your whole body. So he's thinking at first, okay, I'm in a game. This is kind of cool. But there's this creature there that's talking to him like, bruh, you're not in a game. You're actually here. Your mind and soul are here. And I think James heard him, but he wasn't really paying attention until he got stung by a wasp. And he was like, what the fuck? My pain sensor should not be this high. Yeah, so it takes a while. Chapter. Is that the next chapter? I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
My bad.
No, you're good.
Jumping ahead. I'm gonna kick it back to Live then. We'll come back to that.
I think I said everything before my little demon came, but yeah. To me, I like the transition. I like that they showed the basic personalities of that whole group, because from what I understand, we're gonna follow each of them, right? Am I right about that? So yeah, so we got a little bit of all their personalities. We got and we got like the main, what you have to do to end up getting sucked into this plane. I thought it was really well done. Again, it hooked me. I was like, now what's gonna happen? So yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about that one.
So we'll go into the next chapter because that's the one Alicia wants to talk to.
My bad, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. So in the next chapter, James wakes up. When he wakes up on a hard bed and shitty pillow, and he's like, what the fuck's going on here? He's basically in a loincloth. And there is a little imp flying around him, and his name is Zertrax. And he's basically, like Alicia was saying, he's trying to explain to him, your mind and soul have been transferred here. This is not a video game. This is the land. The video game was preparing you for this. Whatever powers, whatever you had before, they do not exist here. And it was a really good exchange. Like Alicia said, eventually he's like, you know what? I've had enough of this. He snaps his finger. A big-ass wasp appears beside him. And, you know, James, still thinking he's playing the video game, tries to, like, roll out of his way and do a spell and all this shit. And he gets stung twice in both arms, and it hurts him. So he's laying up against the wall. He's kind of, like, drooling on himself. And Zertrax is like, no, seriously, this is the land. This is a real place. You cannot go home. This is your life now. And he kind of like breaks down how things work. He doesn't understand what a chaos seed is. He has no idea. He doesn't even know who gave him the order to be there to introduce James to the land. He doesn't. He's like, I don't know who. I was just told to be here. That's as far as it goes. James makes a mistake, and it's in the next chapter, which I'll get into. But throughout this, they have this little bantering going back and forth, which was really, really cool. It's very entertaining. But watching James learn that he's not Silk and he's not playing the video game and he's actually there in real life was very, very fun and very entertaining. So, Alicia, let's get you into this one.
Yeah, James is now, as Zertrax says, a basic bitch. He has none of his powers anymore. He has none of his gear. He cannot do anything. He doesn't even know how to start a fire just yet. Absolutely level 0. And one of my favorite things that pops up when he starts, you know, he tells him to check his stats page. And one of my favorite things about the whole series is the stat pages that come up, because the announcer is a smartass. And like at the end of each thing, towards the beginning, when James is still low level, at the end of the stats, he's like, "Who are you again?" Basically telling him you're a nobody and nobody knows who the fuck you are or cares about your life.
James, level 1. Who are you again?
Yeah. And when he messes up, there's a part where no, maybe it's in the next chapter. I'll wait on that. I think that's a bit later on. But the announcer, I highly encourage you guys to get this audiobook. The announcer and the way he talks is absolutely hilarious. But like JD was saying, Xerxes gives him the rundown, and right here I think is where you really start to get a sense that for some reason James is special. Like, there are millions of chaos seeds that are being brought into the land, but someone paid this imp, and this isn't just any random imp. He's a very old creature. He has a very high standing with magic in the world, and he gets jobs from very high level people. And this job that he was given here is to tell James all of the basic rules that he needs to follow and get him ready to go about his new life. So someone is looking out for our boy. For whatever reason, they deemed him fit. And as we go through the book, you'll see this motherfucker is literally like one of the luckiest characters ever, because he lucks up on some shit. And I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want to skip past the chapter.
I want to say that before live goes, I kind of want to show you guys. I'm going to tell you guys what she's talking about when it comes to the stats. So basically, you get name, ? Level 1, age 24, race, chaos seed, human, alignment, neutral, languages, mortals, repetition, level 1. Who are you again? And then it goes through like his health, 100%, whatever, blah, blah, blah. James, since he's a chaos seed, 2 special attributes when he begins this. Limitless, 100% affinity in any and every skill. Basically, he can be the baddest motherfucker to ever exist in the game. The second one is a big one too. Gift of tongues, ability to comprehend almost any spitan language. So which means he can understand anything, and that will actually come up in the next chapter. So Lab, if you want to continue off of that.
Yeah, like this is like the part in the book, I think if you play these games, you'll get it better. Because at first I was hearing like stats being spit out at me, and I was just like, what the hell does any of this shit mean? Like I didn't really get it. But what hooked me was the smart ass like comments. Like I started listening to it because of those smart ass comments. When at first I kind of like zoned out a little bit, and then they started making me laugh. So then I started listening to it, and now I think I kind of get what all these stats mean. So I'm learning something. But yeah, I felt bad for James in this chapter because he thinks he's in a game, and then all of a sudden he gets like bitch slapped with reality. So it was kind of funny. It's kind of funny, but poor guy. So yeah, that's it.
And this is the passage I want to read you guys from this chapter. And this is a passage that we were talking about the universe and him being paid well. So Xerxes says, I was well paid to advise you. Trust me when I say that you're lucky to have me. The universe is a big place, and I don't think I have too much to have to fear from one human. Besides, for an eternal being like myself, if I can't be trusted to do my job, I won't get any more. So basically what he's saying right there is, dude, I got paid really, really fucking good to be here. And if I don't get, if I don't do this correctly, I lose my job. And this is, so that was, I think that's really cool how he puts it. And at the end of the chapter, he's like, what's your name? Well, he's not going to go by Silk anymore. He's not going to go by his actual name, James. So we get Richter. So from now on,
wait. JD, hold on real quick. Tell him why he chooses that name.
Oh, let's see here. Oh, okay, here we go. If he really was in a new world, he planned to getting as strong as possible, making impact. He would shake the ground, and his accomplishments would only be measured by, and And that's when he says Richter. So basically his whole everything will be on a Richter scale. That's how we get the name Richter. And
he picks that name because what is his name? I keep wanting to say Xerxes. It's not Xerxes. Xertrix. Yeah.
Yeah.
He tells him that you cannot tell anyone what your real name is because words, like Lav said, words are not wind. They have power. If you tell someone your name, that it's like that Doctor Who episode. They can use that against you.
I was just gonna say that whole name thing too is another thing that reminded me kind of like that demonic-ishness. Like, I don't know if you're any Catholics out there, but supposedly if you know the demon's name, that's how you can cast it out. So I don't know. It was just like they have hints of that kind of, I don't know, Christianity lore in it. That's kind of cool, but yeah, the name is really important, which I don't know, for some reason I think will come up later.
All right. In the next chapter, hold on, let me get back over here. So basically, this is the next chapter, and he asks him what a chaos seed is, and he's like, I don't know what a chaos seed is. It's just a part of who you are. And they kind of go like through that, and he goes, this is time for us to part ways. I'm going to leave you with some gifts. And this is where I said he makes a mistake. So this is chapter 2. This is where we learn that words have power. He goes, thank you, Xertex. I really owe you, Richter said, extending his hands. And Xertex says, what? Looking confused. He goes, I said, I owe you. He goes, really? He goes, yes, Richter said with some expiration. He goes, twice heard and witnessed. And then Richter goes, oh, shit. I really need to pay attention what the fuck I'm saying because words have power. You're going to screw yourself. Now he owes this imp because he said this 3 times. He owes this imp. And I'll tell you right now from personal experience, in the 7 books I've read, the imp hasn't appeared yet. So when he appears, I'm really curious what's going to happen.
It's going to be some shit. I was wondering that too. Like, when is he going to come back? At what point of weakness is Richter going to be in where he asks for this favor?
Yeah, like what's going to be going on at this point in time, and what is that favor going to be? Like, that's the other thing that worries me. Like, break me away from my bosses, or my bosses are ordering you to do this. Like, there's a lot of different ways this thing could be taken, and it's very, very interesting. So he gets some stuff from him. He tries his hand at herb lore, like picking some herbs. Well, he has no skill at herb lore right now, and he destroys the plants he's trying to pick. So he decides he wants to go hunting. That's great. He knows how to skin and tan and hide, but he doesn't know how to. He doesn't have fire, so he can't cook food. So he basically starves himself. He finds some blueberries in the process, plus the waters of clarity. Now, the waters of clarity are something that helps him increase his experience by 25% for the next 24 hours. At this point, he realizes this is a really big deal, and it's in a pond. He was worried about drinking out of it. Then he drank out of it, and it works out great for him. Yeah. So he does that. He leaves, he's hunting, whatever. And he seems that the forest is old, very large trees. The forest is very dense and everything like that. So he just continues and walks and hunts through this whole chapter.
JD, real quick. That the pool of clarity that he has, that whole little spot where he got dropped into the land is a secret area. And he's told that he's the only one that can get in there. Like, there are enchantments protecting this area. And that pool is going to come into play a lot in later chapters. And that area is basically going to be like his safe hold. If he dies, then he's told that that's where he's going to come back to, unless he finds someplace else to bind himself to.
Yeah, it's really based off of an RPG game. Like, when you're playing an RPG game and you're exploring the world or whatever, you always find a safe place to save it, especially if you're getting ready to go find a boss or something. That way, when you die, you respawn right there. And this is what this place is for him. Like I said, that chapter is basically him just kind of hunting and everything. He kills a fox, and then he goes, "What did this fox say?" And he does the little freaking ring ding 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 sound. It was fucking hilarious. I laughed my ass off.
He's a dude bro, and that's what dude bros do. And he's also kind of a pop culture whore. You'll see that a lot throughout the books. He makes a lot of references that are funny as hell.
Yes, he does it very comedically. Did you guys have any others that you wanted to put on this chapter? Like I said, it's really a basic hunting, exploring real quick chapter that nothing really happens in.
I'm good going. Go ahead, love.
I just have more of a question because, like, since you guys have read ahead, is it like, I know the prince is bringing these chaos seeds in, right? Is there any hint or anything that there's somebody else maybe using his plan against him? Because it seems like that place is special and somebody loves this, our James, but I don't know if I'm just going into Game of Thrones thinking where everybody's backstabbing everybody.
There is something when it comes to the light and dark court. It does seem like there's somebody protecting him because, one, he got the Zertrix to help him. But what it is, I don't know because we haven't been shown that yet.
We haven't even
snippets.
We haven't even met like any of the other creatures or peoples that inhabit the land just yet. It's not until actually this next chapter, I think, that we're about to move on to, that we get other creatures.
Well, yeah. The one thing I wanted to say is you'll notice as we do these reviews of the books, each chapter starts out, chapter 3, whatever day it is, a month, which this one is Seren 22, 15368 ABG. Now, this confused me the very first time I read this series because it goes ABG and then a different. And what I found out is this is the age of the gods, the year of a god. That's what the ABG stands for. It took me a while to figure that out, but that's what that stands for.
I'm glad you clarified that because, yeah, going through all 7 of these damn things, I still didn't know what that was. So thank you.
Me neither.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like I said, it confused the hell out of me. I was sitting there and I think I was listening to the second or the third book and I went to say ABG with the title and it ended up being EBG. And I went, what the fuck?
So they basically they're giving these times like Aegon's Conquering and how stuff is dated in Game of Thrones, for that reference, just so you guys can understand it.
Yep. So after the quick hunting, he goes back. He gets. He wakes up at his place. He takes a drink of the clear water. He gets his 25%. It cracks me up because this part he goes, I don't want to eat any of this because I might get some alien bacteria, and he doesn't want to get the trots from it. So he doesn't eat anything. So he gets these blue berries, these blue forest berries, and they give him concentration. They give him 5% concentration for the next 4 hours. So he like eats a handful and then he goes to eat another handful and it doesn't do anything. Basically, it's a one-time kick and that's it. That's all he gets. So he continues walking. And this part's actually really, let's see here. Right here he goes. He quickly placed another handful in his mouth, hoping for an accumulative bonus. Nothing. Well, he thought that would have been a cheat to the end of all cheats. Watch out, dragons. I have a magical bush. And then he chuckles to himself. He goes, awesome. He keeps moving. He really didn't notice any difference, but what he would increase was concentration fill for anything. Richter was sure that a couple of his ex-girlfriends might be able to tell him that. So like, as you see, like he makes fun of himself. He pops jokes at himself the whole time that he's going through this. I really thought the I have a magical bush thing was fucking hilarious the couple of times that I heard it. I still laugh when I think about it. So we come into the forest. So now remember, Richter has tongue ability. He can understand. So he's walking through and he hears, get ready. I've been ready. I'm always ready. And then he hears, quiet now. I'm almost here. Or he's almost here. And he goes, I need to know what we need to do. Quit arguing, that the third voice said sternly. Not quite believing what he was hearing, he stopped in his tracks. And then why did he stop? How should I know? So they keep kind of bantering back and forth. And then they go, let's attack. And then he goes, wait. And suddenly it gets quiet because they're like, oh shit, something, they can hear us. To him, sprite speak, them talking is like a bird singing. That's how he explains it to himself, is it's like birds singing, and that's the language of it. So we meet the sprites. And instead of killing him, they take him to the hearth tree to meet the hearth mother, Hisako. When he meets Hisako, Hisako notices that there's something different about him, but that he's not bad and he's not good, but he is definitely human and he's not from this planet. So she gives him a quest: cleanse the forest 1. There are rabid wolves running the forest, and she wants him to go kill 5 of them. And Scion is going to go along with him. So with that being said, Lav, what did you think of this chapter when he meets the Hearth Mother and the sprites?
Okay, so like at the risk of sounding like a broken record, these are one of those things about RPG games that I'm just like, yeah, everywhere you go, somebody asks you for something. And they made it work so that it seemed really organic, I guess, in this. They take him to the Hearth Mother because they're like, how does this dude understand what we're saying? They're completely shocked that he has this ability. And I think here with the Hearth Mother is where you figure out, like, he really is special. I don't know if it's all humans that get sucked in to this game, but the fact that he has all these abilities and the limitless ability. And isn't this when he also, no, it's later. Never mind. I was about to do an AK and jump ahead.
My bad.
But yeah, like you realize like that whole being able to understand the sprites is a big deal, and it saves his ass, you know. So this is where you kind of start realizing that all those abilities they listed off are pretty useful, even though he's starting from the bottom. So yeah, that's what I thought.
Little fun fact, the leader of the sprites, Lady Isako, that is the name of our author's mother. He is, I don't know what Asian he is, but he's Asian and black. And I mention that because I think it matters. There's not a lot of melanated folks in this genre of books, and I think it's freaking awesome that he's doing this. So he meets Isako, and she automatically sees that there's something extra about him. And that's one thing that we forgot to mention from the previous chapter with the imp. He tells Richter that you are very, very lucky to get my help and to be put where you are, because other chaos seeds, they're literally getting just dropped into this land. There are some, he says, that might get dropped into a volcano. There might be some that get dropped into the ocean. It doesn't matter. You know they're coming, but not all of them, if any other than Richter, are getting this special treatment. So he meets the sprites, and the reason they don't kill him and they do take him to the Heart Mother is because he can understand their language. Humans never understand sprite language, but because Richter has this gift of tongues, they take him in because they know there's something extra going on there. And, you know, from Lady Isako, we find out that, you know, all those assumptions are correct. And she sends him on this quest. And I can't say too much more because it might spoil what's coming up next. So with Scion, so JD, I'm gonna kick it back to you, and then I'll speak my piece on him.
All right. So we get into the first quest. Now this is the affiliation with the quest. You have been offered a quest: cleanse the forest 1. Diseased animals have been threatening the well-being of the wood sprites. Successions: kill 5 to show you can be relied upon. Reward: safe passage to the land of the wood sprites in the forests of I can't even say it. Nadria. Penalty for failure: your penalty of failure or refusal of the quest: watering the roots of the hearth tree, basically meaning they will gut his ass right there and let him die. Do you accept? So he accepts the condition. In the process of accepting this, he goes, hey, by the way, I'm out of arrows. And Asako makes fun of, yeah, normal human being taking everything he can at once. But she goes, whatever. And she gives him sprite arrows, which they are magical arrows. And they are uncommon, well-crafted, and give him some sprites on, or some trait accurate updates. So we get into the next chapter, and he goes with Scion to hunt these wolves. Now, you get a piece of Scion that I wasn't really expecting. He asks him, "What can you tell me about the Force?" This is Richter talking to Sion. "That it's much more likely that we will be eaten if you make a bunch of irritating noise like idle questions," Sion answered. His gaze never wandered in Richter's direction. So you can see this little bit of a hatred with Sion towards Richter because he's a human, and this actually comes up later in another book before we get any farther. He goes, "I didn't mean to invade your territory. I was hunting. If you don't want me here, then you can leave and go back and tell Taco that you don't want to accompany." He goes, "We do not bicker and we do not argue like humans. We do not question the loyalty or the orders from our leadership." So basically, sprites are very formal in their order of loyalty and their hierarchy. So basically, if the Hearth Mother speaks, the soldiers or whoever does exactly what they're asked. So they continue following the TQ, walking, and this is where like you get like little things from like today. He goes, "The speech will comprise of probably 75% of the words Sion has spoken since meeting him. We delivered it in the same disinterested tone as a Geek Squad douches who recommend a customer plug the laptop in to fix the fact that it wouldn't turn on anymore." So you get those little snippets from our world put into the story, which is really, really cool. And he goes, speaking as a former geek genius bar employee, those guys are the worst. Who needs to wear a dumb uniform to install Windows anyway? So you get like small snippets of humor, and I like that. But they keep going. So they get to the wolves. Richter tangles with a wolf. He kills a wolf. He stands up. He's cheering. He's dancing. And Sion goes, "Why are you celebrating when those other wolves are there?" So by the time Richter turns around to do anything, that wolf is on top of his ass and kills him. So what did you guys think of this chapter? I thought it was really good. We got a lot of good back and forth between Sion and Richter. Alicia, take.
I thought this was a good chapter. And one thing we forgot to mention, Sion is so especially loyal to his people, not just because that's a common trait among sprites, but the Hearth Mother is his actual mother. So if she gives him an order, he's going to follow it. And then this is my one beef with Sion is just this beginning relationship with him and Richter. Like with those wolves coming, Richter got, and he didn't have to be, but you know, there was some ill blood there, and not really by any fault of Richter. What you'll see in the land is there are a lot of prejudices among all of the different species and races of people. And the sprites, honestly, they're pretty friendly towards anyone that's friendly with them. But like most, they have issues with humans because we're fuck-ups. That's basically it. Humans got issues. So I kind of can see why Sion was the way he was speaking to Richter, but you know, you got to give people a chance. You know, you don't know this dude. He can't be blamed for his whole species, but you know, meh.
Yeah, I agree. There is a lot of prejudices between everybody here, but I noticed it's something about the character of Sion too. Sion, right? He continuously shows this kind of side to himself. He's a cool guy or a cool little sprite, love him, but he does have this kind of snap to judgment on not only people but other species based on his past. So that was like a cool thing they showed about his personality. They show how freaking smart Richter is, and they show it with humor. Like he's over here talking about geeks like he's like they're stupid. You kind of get the feeling like it's because he's smart. He doesn't need them. He can figure all this stuff out on his own. You know, like those guys are people like me who don't know shit and need help. So you get that Richter's smart, and then while he didn't have to die, like his homie could have helped him, he did kind of have to die because he needed to learn that lesson. Dying in a video game is totally different from dying in this game. Like he feels that wolf tear him apart. He He feels that. It's real. And that's, I think, when he finally gets it. Like, yeah, I'm here. This is my life, and I got to get my shit together. So, yeah, I think they did like a really good job of showing us a bunch of information in just this little chapter where they're pretty much just walking and Richter is getting killed. But there was a lot of information in there.
Honestly, he made the classic human mistake. You know, he celebrated too soon.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. He was happy that he had killed something. So he wakes up and he's pissed off. Like, he shows back up at his place of safety. He's extremely pissed off, and he's showing his emotions, and he's like, I felt anger. He's like, no, wait a second. He felt rage. He raged at the wolf for hurting him. He raged at Scion for not helping him. So he's pissed, which I can't blame him. That shit would suck. You're supposed to have somebody there to help you, and then all of a sudden he just kind of stands there and watch you get fucking torn apart by these wolves. So the one thing he does learn is, even after you die, when you come back, you still feel the pain for quite a bit before that attack, before that pain disappears. Like, he still feels the wolf ripping at his throat when he wakes up for a little while before he realizes it. So he gets some good things out of it. It says, you have uncovered your first quality. You have resolve. The choices in life that led you to a critical point. An excess of opportunities were laid before you, many leading to disaster. You have chosen a finer path. The experience of your entire life has cumulated into this one moment. You have decided not to kneel, but to stand, not to beg, but to take, not to wait, but to forge ahead. Be true to yourself and find your specific power. So he gets 2 bonuses, 5% in mental resistance and 5% in spiritual resistance, which means he can kind of block some things. So he decides that he's going to go and get back to the sprites and finish his quest, when he looks down and realizes he's completely naked, and he calls the universe a dick. But, I thought that whole chapter was well written, because you get his first quest. He thinks he's going to make a friend, and in return gets a stab in the back. Then he dies. Then he wakes and he flips out. And the ultimate embarrassing fact that he woke up completely naked, realizing that when he dies, nothing's going to come back with him. Like, that whole chapter made me laugh. I thought it was a greatly well-written chapter. So, Alicia, what did you think of the ending of that chapter when he wakes back up?
I thought it was just funny. I mean, he had the natural progression of emotions, I think. He woke up and he was sad for a while, actually. Like, he literally laid on the floor and trembled as he cried about the sadness of his current life. But then he got pissed. His homie, well, it's not his homie yet, but his companion let him die, and that was my beef. DA, why you talking shit in the chat? Damn it. Yes, I have beef with people, but I have reasons for that beef. You don't let your companions die when you're on a quest. Damn it, no man left behind. You should know that. We watch Stranger Things. You don't leave the party. But he rages, and he eventually, basically reconstitutes himself. And through his resolve, we get another prompt that comes up, and JD probably has it up, so I'll let him say it when we get done here. And he, he gets up, assesses the situation, goes back to the pool of clarity, to get some points back, and he resolves to go on and make this right, pretty much.
Live.
What I liked about this part is it shows not that his dying gave him any points or gave him any, I don't know, like what's that word I'm thinking of? Like, pushed him forward any. It was the way he handled it. So he's like seriously traumatized when he wakes up, because I'm assuming, I never want to know, but I'm assuming getting torn apart by a rabid wolf would be fucking traumatizing. So he's traumatized, he's trembling, he's crying, and then somewhere in that breakdown, he turns it around and he's like, nah, I've got this. I know what I have to do now. I know where I am, and I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to like go at this full force. And that's when he makes that decision. That's when that prompt comes out and you find out that he has more abilities or all that stuff. So I thought it was a really great chapter showing Richter and how, I keep wanting to call him Richter, and how his personality is and what kind of person he is when shit really goes down. And he is even more likable than he already was with his jokes and stuff.
And the one cool thing about this book that I've never missed in any other book that I've listened to, litrpg or nothing, is when a bonus or level up or something happens, there's a different sound that clicks up every time in this book. And so you're like sitting there listening to it, and all of a sudden it's like ding, congratulations, and you're like, holy shit. Like the first couple times I heard it, it caught me off guard, and then I got used to it. But the upgrade that you're talking about is, congratulations, you have learned the skill light armor. You and your armor will be perfectly blended with speed and defense. Others can stand in heavy towers of metal. They make quite a clatter when your swift knives meet their eye, meaning you can move a lot faster than it can. So that's the perk he gets. Oh, hold on. I got to let the dog out. Go, you two. Get out of here. Go. God, they're worse than kids, I swear. So he realizes that he's going to have to run through the forest naked to get back to the wood sprites to continue his quest. So when he gets back to him. He gets caught by the sprites going, hey, wait, hold on. He goes, wait, I'm Richter. I'm here with, I'm here to talk to the Hearth Mother about my quest, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And when he walks through, it kind of freaks Sako out. She's like, do you remember who you are? Do you remember what happened? And she's asking these questions. Richter doesn't say a freaking word. He just keeps walking up until the pact. He gets to Scion and open hand slaps him and knocks him to the ground. And then he jumps on top of Scion and gets ready to pummel him when Hisako tells him to stop. And when she tells him to stop, she freezes his body. He can't move. Scion, pissed off, wiggles out, grabs his short sword, gets ready to stab him. She stops him. So it's kind of funny. And so she asked him what had happened, and he looked up and he tells him, he goes, I remember everything. He let them tear me apart and let me be eaten by wolves, and all he did was watch. Hisako looked at Scion and said, is this true? And he goes, the quest wasn't mine, it was his. He grumbled, not making eye contact with the Hearth Mother. Yet you know, then this is a part of the sprites that I really, really like. It says, yet you know that you were sent to help him and thereby help our people to remove the dangerous threat. We will address this in a moment. My first question, Richter, are you whole of mind? Do you fill any gaps in your memory? And I didn't realize this till later on, and it's in I think it's like book 6 that you learn why she's asking this, but I'm not going to give it away. But she knows some about coming back from the dead, and one of them is your memory can be kind of screwed up. You can lose pieces of yourself when you come back to life. So she's kind of concerned. And he tells her that he doesn't know what she means. He remembers everything. He remembers who he is, where he's from, where he's at, everything like that, and what had happened. And he was there to finish and repay his debts, and that he would actually finish it because she gives him a chance to opt out of the quest. What did you guys think of that little quick exchange between Scion, Hisako, and Richter? Lav?
Well, I think Scion got off pretty easy, that he just got bitch slapped a few times because he did let the dude die, so he deserved that and more. But I found it really interesting that she was very worried about whether he remembered who he was and what happened. So I think she does say that whole bit, right, about you lose pieces of yourself. So I don't know, it reminded me of like the Red God. Every time they get brought back, they lose a little bit of themselves. So makes sense. Dying kills a bit of you, right? So I really enjoyed that. And I really made me respect Richter more, that he was like, no, I'm gonna do this quest. I'm gonna finish it. I know he has like some kind of selfish reasons for it, but he still went ahead and did it instead of leaving them in the lurch. So I think it's cool. I think it showed them all in a better light. Cyan's still working on his redemption, but it was really cool.
Being the person that Richter is, I'm honestly surprised he didn't walk up to Cyan and be like, what did the 5 fingers say to the face? Smack! I was looking for that, but it didn't happen. Either way, Cyan definitely should have got a few more slaps. But, you know, his mom was there. You see your kid getting smacked around by some random human, you're going to stop it. So, you know, and like JD said, Richter does get the option to opt out because the Heart Mother understands that, you know, he's basically betrayed. You know, she sent her son to help him and he acted dishonorably. But Richter does have a sense of honor about himself, and that grows a lot throughout the whole series, you'll see. And, you know, almost like as a repayment, you know, for him saying he's going to continue the quest, and because Cyan, you know, fucked up, then, you know, she gives them tools to continue the quest. And I'll stop there because I think it moves into the next chapter from there.
Nah, we're still in the middle of this chapter. That was just the very beginning of it. So the Hearth Mother kind of feels bad for him, what had happened. I mean, when he goes, go get Richter back. His clothes are just torn up. So she gives him armor, and I'll go through it. Chest plate of the wood sprite. I'm not going to go through the stats. Reinforced pants of the wood sprite. Shoes of the wood sprite, and bracers of the wood sprite. So all of his levels just kind of jump right there. So like you go and, you know, you go into a mission and you run into a certain character, and they're like, if you help me with this, well, you can have this now and then something else later. So that was kind of how it worked out. It's like, here, we screwed up. My son's an asshole. Here's this badass armor for you. So he kind of gets surprised by that, but she gives it to him anyway. So in the process of this, Hisako kind of rips into Cyan about what had happened. So he tells her that he'll finish, we'll start. So she rips into Cyan and she tells him that you're a dick and you should have helped him. So with the process of this, the second part of this quest comes out. Cleanse the forest too. It is clear now that some sickness has befallen the animals of the forest of Narnia. Killing a few rabid animals will not correct the problem. Success conditions. Discover what is making the animals sick. Rewards. Increased regard for the wood sprites. Possible gift from the wood sprites. Penalties of failure or refusal are none. So basically now, if he tells her no, it's fine, whatever. So he does accept it. He does do it. And this is, I like this passage by Hisako right here. Hisako's eyes hardened for somewhat. I cannot force acceptance into your heart, Cyan. I know well why you might welcome death of any human. This man is only responsible for the actions and drives of his own heart. However, not the evils of his entire race. I will not force you to accompany him again, but I encourage you to work towards clearing these dark marks from your life. Watching another in pain without offering aid is not our way. What will you do? That's a very, very powerful statement, right? It's a very powerful statement for period in life. You know, that's like, you know, you meet somebody and you go to the bar with them and they get in a fist fight and get jumped by 4 people and you just stand there and watch it like, what the fuck ever, you're whatever, and you don't like them just because of the color of their skin or their religion or whatever. That's fucked up. And I really like how Aleron Kong put that statement of, you need to cleanse the darkness out of your heart. You cannot be like that. You have to be more accepting towards people. So Cyan does the good thing. He steps beside Richter. They become companions in the game. Like he actually has a companion sheet. And Richter and Cyan are going to go fight the wolves. So with the end of that chapter, Alicia, how did the end of the chapter feel with how Richter handled the situation, how Hisako handled it, and how did Cyan handle it?
I think they all handled it well. Like, you know, Hisako, you know, she isn't the typical motherly person that, you know, tries to sweep it under the rug that her kid messed up. No, she absolutely reprimands him for it. and says, okay, right here and now, you need to make a choice. What are you going to do to rectify this situation? And Scion does step up, you know. He goes back with Richter and actually works with him. There's still a bit of animosity there, but the more he talks to Richter and learns more about him, he sees that, you know, there is, you know, a little something about this guy that he could like, and that helps to progress their relationship a lot more in the coming chapters.
I liked it. I thought they took like a really crappy situation and they made the best of it. So yeah, they took something that could have just ended up in like complete crap with them killing each other or turning on each other, and they turned it into a positive that's going to help both Richter and the sprites. So it was probably like the best outcome of that situation that could have happened.
And actually, I forgot. Isako tells him that, you know, you can not do the quest and we'll still give you, you know, free range to still be around our lands to hunt. No one will harm you or try to stop you from taking care of yourself or doing anything. But Richter still chooses the honorable path. You know, he recognizes that he needs, you know, friends basically in this world. So he makes himself, you know, have a strong relationship with the sprites and to show them that he is a stand-up guy and, you know, can work together with them to handle whatever they need to handle.
Yeah, and that, you know, that shows right there that Asako has no hate towards anything or anybody. She is like, okay, we screwed up, my son screwed up, and, you know, nobody will harm you. You are free to do whatever you need to do. Just don't harm us, you know, kind of situation. So we get past that and they take off, and Richter decides to, when he becomes a companion with Scion, learns that he can see Scion's skills, which I'm not going to go through, but one of them that comes up is called Imbued Arrow. Now, this fascinates Richter, but he decides he's going to leave it alone for the minute. So as they're walking through the forest, they hear something snarling, and they come across a cave. And like any video game, when you find a new area, it comes up, area discovered, and it goes, new cave. So they relax. The large wolf, they get stared at for, and it scares Richter, and he kind of like stops and freezes, but the wolf just kind of doesn't pay attention and continues on doing whatever. So in the process of this, he gets an update. Congratulations, you have learned the skill stealth. Use your surroundings to avoid detection. Attacks made while stealth can become extra damage. You now inflict 2 times greater damage during stealth attack. So basically him just keeping out of sight of that big wolf and the other wolves in the cave, he learns it. So I thought that was really cool that, you know, some of these skills you don't have to break your back, you know, to learn. I thought that was really cool. So they get ready to fight these. And this is one thing that I thought was cool. And this is coming from the original game that Richter was playing. And he looks at it and goes, new cave. In the game, dungeons are divided by age. New dungeons are less than a year old. The progression was new, young, seasoned, mature, old, time-worn, ancient, and primordial. After young, each stage was 10 times as old, a year, 10 years, 100 years, and so on. The age was how long the creatures had been there. It was usually a marker for the difficulty and loot that could be gained, but it wasn't exact. A new cave would basically be easy. So they go in there. Richter shoots one of the smaller wolves while Scion's drawing an arrow. Now, this is the imbued arrow, and I want to read this. The sprite's arrow developed a blue aura and vibrant perception, almost as if he wanted to shoot off the string of its own accord. Knocking his own arrow, Richter took aim and closer to the 2 smaller wolves. Using his breathing, he waited for Scion, releasing his arrow 1 moment later after the sprites. The arrow streaked towards his target, hitting the broadside. The wolf collapsed to the ground. Hearing a faint boom, he looked at the larger wolf, but only saw a red mist hanging in the air. Turning back quickly, he saw the uninjured wolf darting towards him. Richter dropped and drew his dagger and killed the other wolf. So the imbued arrow is pretty sweet. It's basically like a little missile. So I'm going to stop right there before we continue any farther. The sneak attack, him being able to gain the skill real quickly, and the imbued arrow enchantment. Lav, what did you think and how that was written for that chapter, just the beginning of it?
I liked how it was written because, like I said, when they spit out stats, I don't really, like, it took me a while to start getting it. And I think the way they kind of spit out the stats at you, but then they also bring it into the storyline really helps somebody like me. So I liked it. And again, it just shows you how special Richter is, because he picks up on things right away. And there's like a bunch of stuff later on where they keep telling him, oh, I don't think you're going to learn this. And then sure enough, he learns it. Or you're not supposed to be able to teach this, and he teaches it. So it just shows how special Richter is, and I like how they wrote it.
Sela gives no fucks. But yes, I agree. Like Lav was saying, you know, things that Richter should not be able to learn, he does. And, you know, that's one of the things that Scion says, like, you know, I can't teach you this because it's sprite specific, and, you know, like all the creatures are born with certain things that only they can do. But Richter is, you know, he wants to learn everything, so he's like, you know, just try me. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And it ends up working, so, and that works a lot into his favor. I think that's part of that limitless trait that he has, and it fits in very well.
It does. It makes, you know, it makes a good possibility for progression of a player and how they will take it. Now, we haven't, in the 7 books I've read, there has not been another chaos seed introduced yet. We know that they're going to start being introduced, but they haven't been introduced yet. So I'm curious how Aleron's going to write the other characters into the story, how they're going to act, how they're going to progress their own skills. That's something that I really want to see. So after that, they kill the last wolf. When Richter looks at the wolf that Scion shot, there's a hole in the side of the carcass. Like I said, basically an imbued arrow is like a tiny little missile. It hits and it explodes with magic. The one thing that Richter learns right here is herb lore. So Scion, they walk into the cave. There's nothing in the cave, but Scion finds a patch of moss, dark moss. And he kind of runs his hand across it, and it kind of like falls out into his hand. And Richter goes, how in the hell did you do that? Everything I touch dies, or I just destroy it. And Scion goes, it's my herb lore skill. I love this part by Scion. It's my herb lore skill. I doubt someone as large and clumsy as you can master it. So that was kind of funny. So he says, try me. And the sprite explains how to do it, how to actually get the herbs off, how to get the moss off of the wall. And so Richter, and if anybody ever watched The Matrix, Scion explains it. Richter goes, there is no spoon. Got it. So if you remember on the Matrix, when the kid's got the spoon and it's kind of bending and he goes, there's no spoon. That's what he kind of explains it to him. So Richter tries, and he tried to pull it. And this is what we mean by a smart ass comment. You have picked an unknown plant. Due to your lack of herbalism, you have destroyed the plant. Why don't you try to dig a ditch with those shovels at the end of your arms? So those little smart ass comments they keep the story light and entertaining. Like, as dark as the story gets in some of these books, those little smart ass comments just keep it light and fun. So after that, they continue moving through, and eventually Richter does get dark moss, and he ends up picking 4 of them. And he asks, the first thing out of him goes, can it make poison? Sounds like, well, Mother Nature doesn't mean to harm anything, but yes, it can make poison, just like anything. And so he goes, can you teach me how to create it? And here's Scion. It requires the alchemy skill. Before learning your herb lore so quickly, I would have said it was beyond you, but perhaps it's possible. Let us cleanse the forest first, and then we'll go to the hearth tree, and I'll show you how to do it. So they keep walking. They keep Scion surrounds, and they kind of keep looking around, but they run into goblins. This is where they find the issue, the problem. So we find the goblins, and they're trying to figure out how to kill these goblins because how many were there? I think there's like 15 goblins or something like that in this cave. Yeah, here's it is. Cleanse the forest 3. Scion suspects the connection between the sickness affecting the animals and the goblins. Kill the goblins that have invaded the forest. Rewards increase your relationship and a new skill. So Scion's stoked about learning a new skill. So let's see here. I'm looking for how many there actually were. So now he's asking if he can learn how to imbue the arrow, which he does learn eventually, but it takes him a minute. Basically, what he has to do is take his aura, put it into the arrow, and while his aura is surrounding the arrow, put mana into it, and that's how he imbues it. The first time he does it, he doesn't put any mana into it, and it doesn't do anything, but eventually he picks it up. Damn, I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it. Here, Alicia, go from there. They've found the goblins. They haven't got past the goblins, and he's learning the imbued arrow. How did you think of that one? Why I looked for this number?
I thought it went well. And to backtrack a little bit back to the herb lore, this is, again, one of the things where I love the announcer that does the stats. When Richter first tries to pull up a plant before he goes out and meets the sprites, the plant pretty much dies in his hand because he doesn't have an herb lore skill and doesn't know exactly how to pick them. So when that happens, the announcer comes on and he says, "Oh, you found such and such plant, but because you don't have herb lore, it died. Maybe you can't apologize to your mother for those 2 shovels in your hands that are fucking shit up." And it's just the announcer's little quips like that seriously just make my day. But you know, with this where we're at right now, he learns herbology very, very quickly. You know, Professor Sprout would be proud. And then he goes on to learn about the imbued arrows, and Scion again is telling him, you know, you can't do that because, you know, my people are supposed to be able to do it. But since you did pick up herb lore quick enough, we'll go ahead and give it a try. And of course, he learns it. It takes Richter a little bit, but he does get it down. And yeah, the Matrix reference was just so on point. You know, the way Scion says it, it really does just make you think, okay, there is no spoon. And once JD finds the line to read, you'll see why we say that.
I was gonna say, I don't know how this would read if you actually read it, but hearing it on audio, it's just the best. That guy is so awesome. And when you're in those fight scenes, it's so intense. And then you have that weird like announcer voice, and then you have all these different voices, and you have later on this like weird Christian Slater voice that I just love. But yeah, I don't know if anybody's read it or has everybody heard it on audio because it's just too cool.
I think JD's read it. I think there's a couple people in the chat that also read it. I've only listened to the audiobooks, and I very much appreciate Nick Podell. He's a great narrator, and I'll probably be looking for other books that he's narrated as well.
He is very good. Another series that I like that he does is called The King's Dark Tidings. There's 3 books out for that. He does really good in that one. And like I said, they're totally different characters, totally different voice structures. It's really good. I can't find the actual number of these guys. Yeah, it might be a little bit farther down. So they're getting ready to kill. I think this one there were 6 of them, or 3 of them that they're getting ready to kill. So Scion tells him, "Give me the count of 50 while I move up to the other side of him. Then power up your arrow and hit the ugly one with the club." Richter replies, "I haven't imbued it successfully yet." Well, I guess it's time to man up. And with that, he goes, "Maybe one day you'll be good enough to sprite up." So basically giving him shit about, you know, sprites are better than humans. So they say, "Fine, let's do this, but which one's the ugly one?" And exactly, and takes off. So, you know, basically pick whichever one you want to fucking shoot. The difference is, remember when I told you Scion's is a blue aura of magic? When Richter does it, It says he tried to let his mana flow into the arrow. A golden hue began to surround it and flicker in and out. Taking aim at the goblin who's back to him, he let the arrow fly. So since he's a chaos seed, he has a golden aura, unlike the blue of the sprite. So his arrow is now a golden color compared to the blue of the sprites, which is really cool. So they search the bodies. They find some money. He wanted to keep one alive, so they keep one alive so they can keep figuring out, so they can figure out what's going on. They do end up fighting actual goblins, but how they do it is they go down the night before. Scion makes poison out of the moss. Now, when they were trying to figure out what they were going to do, they kind of bounced some ideas, and Richter's grand plan of, it depends on the situation you're in, but this is actually a pretty good idea of, we're going to make poison, we're going to go drop it into their dinner, and we're going to fuck them up. So that's what they do. And it works for the most part. And they are able to kill off the majority of the goblins before any of them realize what's going on, because they're all sick as shit. You want to continue off of that, Lav?
Yeah. So this whole fight scene was super intense. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing it. You're like, I was on the edge of my seat. I don't know why I decided to be listening to this book right before work, but I was there with my coffee, like the edge of my seat, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So, and it just shows again how smart Richter is. Like, Scion can't think of a way around like all of these, what are they, goblins or whatever. So he can't think of a way for those two dudes to take out all of these goblins. And Richter figures it out, and Scion helps him carry it through. Like, this is where we start seeing Scion like really coming through for Richter. He really, like, if he didn't have this guy, he wouldn't be able to do half the crap he does. But yeah, I think it showed how important they both are and how important their relationship is. And it was super suspenseful and really fun to listen to.
Yeah, Scion was kind of like a mad scientist here when they were getting that together. Like, they saw the camp and they came out with the poison that they were going to do. And Scion says, all right, well, let me go scout around and see what else I can find to add to it. So he finds a whole bunch of stuff, and he comes back and he's saying, you know, I found this, I found that, and there's this too. And when we mix it all together, it'll be great. We'll kill them from the inside out. And I almost got this picture in my head of Sheldon from Big Bang Theory when he's going in for revenge on somebody. You know, he has that evil man thing that he does. And that's kind of what Scion sounded like. So they got that together, and, you know, there was like a tree that Scion had to climb up, where one of the branches was right over the cauldron they were cooking the food in. So he put some rocks into the containers he made for the poison and drops them, and they drop and then sink down to the bottom. And so the goblins never notice. So I don't think they would have noticed anyway, because goblins really aren't that smart. But it works. Everybody starts having all these stomach issues. They're all like laying on the ground in pain, moaning and stuff. So they basically just go through and pick them off like one by one. And then they have to go and meet the boss of the goblins. And I'll stop there so JD can move on.
Yeah, I was just kind of going through all this, and basically you just covered everything that happened. There was actually like 35 goblins that they had to kill. So at the end of this, they used the magical ring to heal themselves, and they said, let's finish this. So I'll read this part. They each used Richter's healing ring once. The magic was enough to close up their wounds and stop the bleeding, and they were near full strength. They also both consumed forest sage, which Scion had confirmed that was a basic healing herb. Retrieving what arrows they could, they hastened to get back to the encampment and then up to the cave upon the hill. They had not forgotten time was limited to kill the goblin chief before all patrols made their way back. So you still have patrols of goblins out in the forest that haven't come back to this, so they're trying to make it fast. Though the fight had been intense and painful, it barely lasted 15 minutes. If they did not waste time, they might still accomplish their goal. Richter picked up his sword, a sword that was dropped by a goblin warrior on his way back to the ruin. Checking its stats as he walked, he was overwhelmed. He got a golden cutlass, or a goblin cutlass. And it did supplement basically, but the durability was basically shot. And then he looked at his soldier sword, and it was still good. And he tells him, "Thanks, asshole." Trying to figure out the reading here. And he goes, "It did not take long for them to reach the cave of the both looked at each other wearily. Scion peered at Richter directly in the face, saying, 'We are now brothers in blood. Though I am not immortal like you seem to be, my soul is. If it is my time to join the universe, then I will gladly go with my people.' Nodding back, Richter said, 'It is a noble die for your people, but I said, let's make these bastards die for theirs.' And a grin showed on his face. So you can see how they're ready. They went through this whole poisoning, killing, big-ass battle, yet they still have the big boss to go. I'm trying to find it. So if you guys want to continue off of that, where they went through the cave and killed everybody.
All right. So after, they killed all the goblins that were outside, they go into this tunnel. And at the very back of the cave, there's the big boss. I think he's like Red something or other. He's basically a war chief of the goblins. And goblins normally don't gather together in the size that that group is in, because they're so low level with their thinking and petty. They usually end up just fighting each other when there's too many of them in one place. But sometimes there's a goblin that's born a bit extra, and he's able to rally like great numbers into an army and lead them. So this is the guy that they meet, and he's not alone, though. He has this huge, weird big bear that's with him, and a mage. I think he's a goblin mage. I don't remember, but I know there's a mage there. And the fight that ensues is pretty damn epic.
Yeah, this was another super suspenseful fight where I was just like on the edge of my seat, holding on to my coffee, like, what's gonna happen? They're gonna die. Is he gonna go back? Is he gonna die again? So the mage part was really interesting. That's when we start getting more, I think that's when we start getting more of the skills, right? That's when he really starts like getting the powerful skills, the skills that he wants. So aside from it being just like a really cool fight scene, we do learn a lot about magic, which is something that Richter is really fond of. And I think this fight really cements Scion and Richter's relationship. Plus, it's kind of crazy that maybe like a day or something ago, these two hated each other, and now they're like BFFs for life. So I thought it was really cool. It was like a really important fight scene. So
that's kind of like a man code thing. Like, you ever watch two guys in high school or even after high school, man, they get in a fight, they beat the shit out of each other, and the next thing, you want a beer? That's basically how I seen it. Was they'd had their drama, now they're ready to work it out and actually talk. So you're right, we're to the Goblin Chief. So I wanna read the passages of the Goblin Chief and his buddy and how they look. The Goblin Chief was just over 4 feet tall and powerfully built. It wore leather boots and a tunic made of poorly sewn together animal skins. Over this was chainmail shirt with a large rent in its side, most likely created when the chief had killed the previous owner. A large axe was by the side of a buckler hung by his arm. And then the next one, Big Red's companion, so that's what his name was, that's what he called him, was Big Red. Big Red's companion was 5 feet tall, or would have been if he wasn't hunched over. The figure was covered in black robes. Dark splotches gave a matted look to the rough material in place, giving the blacker than black appearance that it had imparted by the Cogleed blood. I can't even say that word right now. It had sickly mustard yellowed skin and was completely bald. The face was more human than other goblins, but it had beady eyes impaired to some malice glare. The deep wrinkles on its face gave an appearance of old age. The yellow goblin had a staff in one hand with a small animal skull attached to the top. Red veins glowed along its black length, the color throbbing with the pace of measured heartbeats. And he's called a hobgoblin, and that's what Scion calls him. He goes, "You're a hobgoblin." And the mage nodded and smiled. So they go back and forth with a little spat, and they get into it. And it says, all Richter saw was a blue flicker, and then the hobgoblin's body was falling backwards, looking at his right. Scion shrugged. When you have to shoot, shoot. Don't talk. And Richter pops off. I guess that makes me Eastwood. So, quick drawing. And then the chief blocked with his buckler, clearly not an easy prey like the dead goblin outside the cave. Richter drew agreeing, confident that the two of them could overcome the sickly goblin, but then the mound of hobgoblin had been leaning against turned around. Richter was suddenly staring into a bloodshot eyes of a froth-muzzled of a rabid cave bear. You have got to be kidding me. That was Richter repeating the thought that had begun launching arrows after arrow at the bear. Unfortunately, his short bow lacked the power to even do deep penetration on the bear. So that was the animal. They actually had a cave bear in there with them. Richter dodged to the side. Despite his efforts, he caught and was flung, and he lost 15% of his health. Dropping his bow, he drew his dagger and he tossed it to the goblin's face. The buckler again moved to block the strike, knocking the projectile to the ground. Aleron Kong's able to describe a fight is actually really, really well. He does a really good job at it. The distraction allowed Richter to regain his feet and draw his short sword. He began swinging his blade with an untrained but furious barrage at the goblin chief. He hoped that Scion could occupy the bear. The boom he heard from his right, followed by the roar of pain and anger, gave him hope. He rained a few blows at his foe. It was clear that the poison had taken its toll. A particular heavy strike drove the chief down to one knee. Grabbing the buckler, the goblin's right arm, he pulled the chief forward off balance. The goblin fell awkwardly, stance all four, one shoulder higher in the bracers. The goblin chief's prone position offered Richter the opportunity needed. With stamina low at 30%, he reversed his grip on the short sword and drove it through the back of the goblin's back. The 2 feet of blade had penetrated the chainmail. So he ends up killing the guy. And I thought it was a well-written fight scene when they already killed the hobgoblin, but you have Scion having to deal with this really, really big bear. And then you have Richter fighting the chief. What did you think of that fight scene?
Go ahead, Love.
I was at the edge of my seat, so that's more credit again, not only to the writer but to the narrator. Like all those voices, and it was just back and forth, and I was freaking out. I thought he was gonna die again. I was waiting for him to wake up naked in the pool again, but yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and like I said before, it really cemented him and Scion's relationship, and it really, I think this is the scene that really makes him like a player in the game. So I enjoyed it a lot. And I want to know what were those three doing while everybody was dying outside? They're just chilling in the cave. Like, what are y'all doing? You just sitting there waiting to get murdered? I want to know what those three were doing, but that's just me.
My best guess is they were probably distracted by whatever the hobgoblin was doing.
Okay, got you.
Alicia?
Yeah, that scene was epic. Like I said in the chat, it's Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones epic fight scenes. And there was a point where it did seem like Richter was going to die, but they pulled through. And this was not an easy battle. The healing ring that they used once they had killed the goblins that were outside only healed them a little bit. It didn't restore their health full power. I mean, they were also low on mana, so they couldn't imbue all of their arrows for that extra punch. So, they basically pulled some shit out their ass to win this fight, and it got done.
And actually, I just read your comment, Alicia, about the playing snips from the book. Yeah, I thought about doing that, but yeah, I don't want to strike on my channel either. So
yeah.
that's why I'm just reading it. Go ahead, Laugh.
No, I was gonna ask, is this the cave fight where Scion asked him what is FML, or is it the other one? Oh my god, that part had me laughing. They just end the chapter on what is FML.
Richter has a bad habit. That's his pop culture whoreness coming through. He makes all these references, and nobody gets it because they're not from Earth, and he always is left explaining himself. Like in the very beginning, when he first meets the Heart Mother, you know, she recognizes he's not from there, and he says this thing, he's like, you know, from Earth, from Southern Jordan, you know, ATL shouted. He was like, oh no. Because there was just crickets. Like nobody knows what you're referencing, dude. Pay attention to what you say.
But I really like it. Doesn't Scion use it? Doesn't he say it later? Yeah, I thought that was funny.
I think it's in the Battle of Skeletons when he first says FML. And no, it's the Battle with the Goblins when he says FML. And he explains it to Scion, and it might be another discussion that we get into before we get to the cave because we're already an hour and a half in. But yeah, whatever happens at the cave with the skeletons, yeah, Scion says fuck my life. So yeah, and Richter goes, oh shit, I gotta watch myself. You know,
Richter is that for everyone in this land. He's that foreign kid, that one lone foreign kid that's in your class at school, and you learn all of the curse words from his language. When y'all actually becomes friends, that's what Richter is for Scion. All this ridiculous shit that nobody knows about, he gets from Richter, and it's just hilarious.
Yeah, and then a little later on, Richter's talking about food that he's gonna bring into this world and everything. I love it.
I'm gonna invent boxer shorts.
Right. And apparently you have to because they didn't have small clothes.
Because whatever rough spun wasn't working for him, so he was gonna have to invent boxing clothes. Another one that cracks me up about Aleron Kong and the way he narrates stuff, or he writes stuff and the way it was narrated, was when Richter first gets his little dagger, and he goes, "My dagger might be only 4 inches long, but you'll feel me." I was like, seriously, that's awesome. So, so they do all that. Richter gets a huge bunch of updates for clearing it, finishing them. And then he gets this. Congratulations, you have cleansed a hidden well. As a owner of Heart Crystal, and because there are no living descendants to the previous owner, you may now lay claim to the ground. Would you like to claim the village? Richter fingers start tingling as he is already counting his riches, and why not? It was in his name, focusing on the yes opinion, he reads, it says, congratulations, you have claimed your first village. You are now master of the Mist Village. Your village is level 1. As you increase, blah, 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 it all increases. Congratulations, you have won 700 points of fame for founding the village of a place of power. And a place of power means that there is a ley line of magic that runs under the village. Now, these magics, and this is what cracks me up. So I'll explain the magic in a second. I just found something I wanted to read. Richter goes, what is a place of power? A place of power is a nexus of the worldly ley lines of magic. It allows magicians, or allows magnifications of those particular powers, sentence beings that can tap into this. And answered a deadpan voice. Somehow Richter could tell it put emphasis on place of power. So you have this voice all of a sudden talking, and Scion goes, who is that? And he goes, we both heard you. Who's there? And he goes, I am the interface of your village, master. Where are you? Richter asked. And he goes, I'm approximately 1 foot south of you. Why can't I see you? My last master did not want me to be seen, so I remain invisible. Would you like me to be seen? Richter replies, yes. And then all of a sudden, this really glowing orb magically appears to Richter, and it freaks him out, and he kind of like jumps back and pulls his sword. So you meet Futon. Futon is the interface to the village. I like Futon. Futon cracks me up because he's very, very monotone about it, and he's very smart-ass about everything he says. So we've learned that now we have the Mist Village, the place of power. You guys could talk about this whole chapter if you want to. It's a great chapter, and I think after this chapter, we'll end this, and we'll come back and finish this discussion at a later time. Alicia, what do you think of him finding his place of power?
Yeah, this is why I said Richter is probably the luckiest chaos seed that we're going to meet. He gets dropped off in this secret valley that's protected from view by enchantments, and he has a pool of clarity in this valley, which is absolutely spectacular. That will come into play in very big ways later on. And now, he meets the sprites, he makes friends with them, and he, defeats these goblins that are trying to build a stronghold in this land. And once he does that, we find out that this is a very ancient, very powerful village that he can now acquire. And it was right next to the place where he got dropped off. Someone is setting Richter up to be great. But is it to be great for a good reason or a bad reason? And that's something that you have to think about throughout the whole series. And what is going to happen when he meets other Chaos Seeds? Are he going to find his friends that were in his original party on Earth? We don't know. But we do know that Richter is lucky as fuck, and he gets this, the Mist Village, which is a pretty awesome place later on. And we meet Futon here. And yeah, Futon is, I think he was a mage like many moons ago. And then he bound his soul to this orb that is guiding Richter now as the remnant of the Mist Village. And Futon, his voice is very monotone. He really has no humor about himself, but some of the things he says to Richter, you just have to laugh at, because he says it just so matter-of-factly, like, "Why? How could you not have thought of this, Master? It is what it is." But I grew to like Futon very much, and he's key. Him and another character are absolutely key to the Mist Village becoming what it is under Richter's rule. And I very, very much enjoyed it, and I can't wait for more.
So Futon sounds like if Jack Nicholson and Christian Slater had a baby, that would be Futon's voice. It is amazing. So that voice with his deadpan smartassery, I mean, I fell in love with this being right away. It reminds me of this. He's like a smartass sorting hat or something. The little piece of a mage left behind. But yeah, I do not know what Richter would do without Futon. That was a very lucky find, because I think like the next 2-3 battles he wins is all thanks to that guy, or that being. And I was gonna say something and now I forgot. Oh, somebody loves our boy Richter. Somebody loves him a lot, because I'm really interested, because now I'm hooked. I'm gonna have to read this whole series, but I'm really interested on seeing somebody in his situation where he doesn't get all this love, where it all goes wrong, where he misses like the volcano by like a smidge or something, or she. So yeah, I'm really interested in seeing other Chaos Seeds.
That Sorting Hat reference was absolutely on point. Futon is a smart ass freaking Sorting Hat, and I absolutely adore it. Like Chrissy was saying in the chat, some stuff will pop off and Futon will say that, well, yeah, they've been here for years, and Richter will be like, "Motherfucker, I could have died. Why didn't you tell me it was there? You did not ask, Master." And like Richter literally has to see a danger coming or something that's going to be harmful. Tell me ahead of time so I don't fuck up.
Yeah. Futon is literally what you tell him to do is what you're going to get. So if you don't tell him to do something, he's not going to give it to you. So, we get the Mist Village, we get Futon, we figure out who Futon is. Richter wants the village cleaned up. He doesn't want all these dead goblins laying around. So unlike most video games where, you know, your enemy disappears, in the land, you have to get rid of your enemies. So he's like, we need to figure out how to get rid of these enemies. Futon tells him, you can have mist workers, which are basically a mist shape of a humanoid, and their hands can change to whatever they need to at that task, and they're around for 24 hours. So he goes, should I summon them? And Richter's like, well, yeah, duh. Have them, you know, put the bodies outside the village and burn them. And he goes, Master, this is not a place of power for fire. They have earth, water, dark, and air magic, I think is what it is for the Mist Village. So he goes, all right, we'll just get him outside the village. I'll take care of him. So we get that, and then we get him, they go take care of the skeletons. And this is where Scion, they come to the cave, and Richter's like, fuck my life. We're going to, you know, FML, we're going to have to fight skeletons. So they get in, they get done with the very first ones. Then they get to the boss, and Scion goes, fuck my life, because this guy is a badass. So basically, Richter has learned that the Mist Village has a cloaking device or a self-defense called Confusing Mist. He puts it on. They use the mist to their advantage. Basically, go into the mist, hide, attack the skeletons, disappear, hide, attack the skeletons, and it works. They have to do this with one boss that is a badass, and it takes them a minute to beat him. And it works because Futon can light up like a freaking firework, and he can project anybody's voice. So when he gets ready to fight the boss, he goes, I need you to have him chase you up the hill. Can you sound like something else? And Futon turns around and goes, can you sound like something else? And Richter goes, don't do that again without my permission. That's just fucking freaky. You know, Futon has his points and times, but they defeat the skeleton, and they get a staff and a bunch of stuff of evil. And yeah, it was a crazy chapter. It was fun. And then they go back to the Hearth Mother, and I'll leave it there for you guys to continue on. We'll go for about another 15 minutes and we'll cut it off. So Alicia.
Yeah, we get, this battle gets won, and we go back to the Heart Mother and report to her everything that's happened. And automatically, when she sees Richter now, because she is the master of a place of power, she recognizes Richter is now the master of a place of power. And she basically takes him to school. Like, this is one of the things I love about Isaku, is she is very old and she has a lot of knowledge that saves the shit out of Richter over and over again. And she tells him that, you know, you never let someone know that you are what you are, because that will automatically make you a target. He's a chaos seed, so he's already going to be a target to anyone that recognizes that. Like, he's told that, you know, because of the attributes you have, like the limitless attribute, people would kill you right now for fear of how powerful you could become with the attributes you have. So you have to really start being careful now that you have this village that has excellent enchantments. Like the mist that's around this village is phenomenal. Like, you could be not even 3 feet. You could be maybe 1 or 2 feet away from someone and they can't see you. If you're leading someone through that and you know where you're going, they have to stay very close to you or they'll just automatically get lost. And, the whole thing with the Mist Village is really freaking awesome. Like, you need mana to do some things like imbue the arrows, and the village has its own mana pool that it can manifest. You know, the mist workers are absolutely awesome and vital in a lot of work that comes in later with building up the village, the Mist Village. It's just awesome to see how it all plays out. And I think that chapter is where we're going to stop. So I'll kick it over to Lav.
Yeah, like, it's not enough that Richter gets a place of power. He gets like a really cool place of power. So, and what I love about like this end part of the chapter is how much Richter shares with Scion. He, like, everything he gets, he shares it with his buddy. Like, they are so tight at the end of this, by the end of this chapter. Like, when he goes back to his mama, he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna leave with my friend again, you know, like, so I just thought it was really cool. And that village is awesome. I can't wait to see it built up. I'm hoping it gets built up anyway. And it kind of cements like Richter's purpose throughout the book. Like once he gets this place of power, that's his goal throughout the whole book. He does have to go through his quests and all this stuff, but it all comes back to this village. So yeah, so that's how important that is. At least it was to me. It was like the whole point of the rest of his journey.
Yeah, his village is very important. When he gets it, he's very excited. And I wanted to go through what Alicia about him being marked. Smiling wearily. Richter said, yeah, it's a little bit hard to miss the tree with the size of that power. And she's talking about the heart tree. It's huge. It's in the middle of this forest, and there's a big-ass tree. And so Asako says, I am a master of a place of power too. As such as I can recognize another master. My powers are life, earth, and light. Holding up her wrist, a small circle appeared, while Richter's was silver and filled with mist that slowly swirled. The Hearth Mother's was deep green with a figure of a tree. The branches seemed to wave in an unseen wind, the leaves gently shifting, somehow feeling that it was the right thing to do. He held up his left wrist, and his mark appeared. She says, thank you for showing me your trust. Your mark will be hidden for the most, but any master of a place of power will be able to identify you if you get close enough. There is a glow in the center of your eye. You can see mine if you look. Be careful of this. Being a master means that you have access to power that others will try to take from you. You are now a player in the great game, but you are a target as well. Invest in the growth of both your village and your power. Create a meaningful community and be careful who and what you allow in. The decision of today can be the fruit for centuries of future. So basically, she just packed it in with a bunch of knowledge in a real quick sentence of, yeah, you have a village. It also lies on a big, powerful place. You're in a game. You are in the great game. And if people know who you are, they are going to try to take that from you. So you need to watch your ass. You need to watch who you allow in, who you don't allow in, because this shit could kill you or it can make you thrive. It depends on how you take it. So basically, and allowing certain people into your life comes with everyday life. I mean, you can allow good people into your life, or you can allow bad people in your life that make your life even harder. So that's how it works. And that does come up in a different book. I think it's book 2. He has a hard situation with some people. Him being a place of power, he now is ready. He's like, hey, I've got a village. I need it to grow. So him and Scion indulge and take off to the city of Law. The city of Law is inside the kingdom of, I think it was, can't remember.
Eve. The kingdom of Eve.
Yeah, kingdom of Eve. So they make it to Law. And the first thing when they get up there to the guards is they find out Scion, to be allowed into the city, has to have papers. And this is from a guy named Calder. Calder is a guard of the city. He tells Richter, slips him some money. He goes, hey, you know what? I know a guy. Go see this guy. He can get you some papers. So Richter goes there. Calder, he actually gets swindled into paying off Calder's gambling debt in order to get the papers for Scion to be legitimately able to walk around the city without anybody fucking with them. In the process of this, they learn of some people that are smuggling non-humans out of the city. The city of Law now, if you are a non-human, you work for a master. The master does absolutely nothing and reaps your reward. It's basically what's happening is slavery in it. It's getting harder and harder and harder for the non-humans to live. So a human by the name of Tarad is taking handfuls of them, and he's using a group called the Nightblades to smuggle them out of the city. When they find this out, Tarad tells Richter about some places to go visit on trading, on being able to find people. He gets introduced to a character named Mama. I can't remember the guy's name, but he says, huzzah! And I can't remember who he is, but he's the trader. And that part always cracks me up because he always walks in. He's like, huzzah! How are you today? And I fucking laugh my ass off every time. But he gets some magical spells in this process. Oh, and I forgot in the last chapter when he becomes the master of the Mist Village. Richter learns air magic. Scion has never been able to learn magic. He has the powers to learn magic, but nothing his mother or anybody else of the Mist Village or of the Hearth Tree can help him. So Richter is taught or is told that he can transfer and help other people learn magic. And he ends up letting Scion, I think that was a big bond between him and Scion, was Richter teaching Scion air magic, trusting him enough to teach him air magic. Anyway, moving on. He gets the magic scrolls. He makes a deal with the trader. He goes and sees Mama. He ends up sitting there for hours waiting for Mama to get done because they're helping people get jobs in the city. And she said she has a huge conversation with him about what he needs to do, who he can do it with, and she would get him a list of names. So what do you guys think of when they got to the city up until that point where he's getting ready to start recruiting people and go into the battle with the Nightblades? How did you guys see that written?
Bob, you can go first.
I enjoyed it. This is really where you see like the interspecies like prejudice where it really comes into play. You get like hints of it with Scion, and then here is where it really like you see how it affects all the different species. And you see Scion kind of try to flip out on a goblin, even though it's supposed to be they're supposed to be in a safe space. Mama, I love Mama. If you've ever seen Chicago, I just think of Mama from the prison. What's her name? Like Queen Latifah. That's how I imagine Mama. She's freaking hilarious, no nonsense. I think all the characters it's like they introduce you to a crap ton of characters all at once. And they're all really well written, well rounded. You get to know them really quickly just through conversations. And Richter pretty much joins like the resistance right away. So that's another thing about the story that I think like, okay, if somebody's taking care of Richter, they had to have known him first. They should know his personality. And Richter, from almost the beginning of the book, is always doing the right thing. Even his greediness gets overridden by him doing the right thing. He like resents every gem he has to spend, but he'll do it if he has to. So, which I thought was funny through the whole thing. He's bitching about the price of everything. So that like cracked me up through the whole chapter. But yeah, like, so I'm wondering that's another reason I was wondering, like maybe there's somebody fighting the prince and Richter might be more for them, but I don't know. But yeah, you get introduced to a crap ton of characters. You get introduced to the resistance, and it was really interesting. They're all funny and they're all unique, and I kind of like all of them. I can't think of a character I don't like yet.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. You know, and the start of this chapter is where we really see how prejudice a lot of the different races are to each other. Like, you know, Scion has to get papers and Calder sends them to a specific guy to get the papers. And when they meet the guy, they say, you know, Calder sent us. And he was like, Calder, that bitch owe me money. I don't want to talk to you. But, you know, Scion, thinking quick on his feet, he's like, well, you know, he sent us to bring you your money. So Richter's like, oh, fuck, now I got to spend more money. So, you know, they pay off Calder's debt. You know, Scion gets his papers, and they go to this tavern where it's one of the very few places, if not the only place in Eve, that is a safe space for all of the races to gather. But because Scion has never been around anything like that, and he sees a goblin that's in there, and he automatically goes to pull out his bow and arrow and kill this goblin that's done nothing to him. So the tavern lady comes in. She's like, you need to correct yourselves because this is my spot and we are all family here. So Richter ends up, you know, paying the goblin, who was actually the tavern cook. He was an employee, and, you know, he apologizes for Scion, and they make amends. and they get to talking and finding out how they can get villagers for the Mist Village. That's why they even went to Eve, because Richter has this awesome place of power, but he doesn't have any people there to put in the work to build up the infrastructure. So he needs to recruit. And he is of a mind that he wants a place where everyone can gather and live and be happy together. So he makes it a point in the interviews to ask how certain humans feel about elves or gnomes or anyone that might be opposite of the human race. And anybody that has issues with that, he cuts them automatically. And he gets this, I think it's about 100 or so people together with Mama's help. And the gift that Mama gives him after that is basically a Chamberlain character. And I don't know, Randolphus, that's his name.
Yes.
We meet Randolphus, and Randolphus is fucking awesome. Like, he was basically the hand of the old king. And he knows his shit. He knows how to run a village. He knows what a village needs. And, Richter had to pay Mama a stipend fee for each person that she got him to go to the village. But Randolphus, she gives him for free. He was her helper at that point in time. But, she says, his skills are being wasted here. He can do so much more. He has the knowledge to help you actually run this village. And we'll find out later on, Randolphus is absolutely key to the success of the Mist Village.
When she introduces Randolphus to Richter, she tells him he used to be the king's chamberlain until the son of the king took it over. He's been running this kingdom for a long time.
He was basically John Aaron.
Yeah, he's a badass. So, I like Randolphus. He's very straightforward, or should I call him Randy? Richter calls him Randy. It pisses him off. But this story is well written. Before we get into the Night Blades, because this whole series from now, from Tarad to the fighting with the Night Blades to the Mist Village back to the Hearth Mother, is a really, really deep and depth chapters. It digs deep into a lot of prejudice. It digs deep into a lot of racial tensions and stuff like that. So I actually want to be able to do a part 2 with that, since we've been on here for 2 hours and we're just now getting to the last quarter of the book. In the last quarter of the book, we can talk along just as much as we did the first 3 quarters. Are you two willing to, at a later date, come back and do a part 2 and finish the last part of this series, or last part of this book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually better if we do split each book into 2 different streams so we can get all the content.
Yeah, because this next part is deep.
Yeah, plus because I just barely finished the book this morning, so I want to go ahead and give it another listen, especially for this back end.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll be able to do it next weekend or the week after, but we'll get it figured out. It might be at a later time the next time we do it, depending on my schedule. But I am very happy that I have some people that I can talk to about this book, because I hadn't met anybody that had listened to this book until I told Alicia to listen to it, and then she just swallowed it down like chugging a beer. It was gone. Like, I'm ready for more. I'm like, they're not out yet.
Right. I'm all the way up to 6. And I'm looking like, when the hell is the audiobook for 7 coming out? He was like, it's not out for like 2 months. I said, well, shit.
It's supposed to be out this month, actually. And it's 46 hours long. This
wow. That's a big one.
This is the biggest book to date that
That's almost like a double book, because his books don't go on more than maybe like 16 or 17 hours. Wow.
I think the average
to it now.
I think if you averaged it out, it's probably about it's probably a good average 20 hours around each book, and Predators is 46 hours long, so it's going to be a good one. I've read half of the book, and it's freaking phenomenal. You get to see a lot of cool things, but we'll get into that at a later date, because we have we still have 5 books in between there before we get there. So yeah, but anyway, Alicia, thank you for joining me. Everybody in the chat, thanks for joining me. Like I said, maybe a week or 2 we'll be able to finish this, hopefully, and get on to book 2. and hopefully I'll get a day to where I have a full day of not doing anything or having anybody around me, and I will stream book 2 before we do the discussion, so you people that haven't listened or read the book have an idea of what we're talking about. Book 2 is just as good as book 1. Actually, I think it's actually a little bit better. They just get better as time goes on. Each book's better than the next. With that, those are my final thoughts. Lav, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I just want to say, like, if anyone's on the fence about reading this book, I'm gonna get back on my Audible just so I can get all the other books. So I'm willing to pay. How much is it? Like $8 a month just so I can get these books. So yeah. I highly recommend it. Do it.
I'll tell you one thing. When you get your Audible account, if you have an Amazon account, sometimes Amazon has a thing where you can get the Kindle, and then they have one that's called Whisper Sync. And it's like $8 for both books, plus you get the audiobook all at once. Ka-ching, all 3 of them for like $8. It's a hell of a deal.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing that then.
So, all right, Alicia.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you're not a gamer, you will absolutely enjoy this book. Like, a lot of times I torrent things, but Aleron Kong can have all of my money. Like I will, I legit, will buy the audiobooks and probably the printed books too, because I just love books. Yep. And it's well deserved. Like he's called the father of the modern day lit RPG novel series, and he's called that for a reason. Like this series is absolutely awesome. It's very fun. It's almost like Percy Jackson / Harry Potter / Lord of the Rings on crack.
/ Game of Thrones.
That into a video game and jump into that world, this is what you're going to be immersed in, and it's absolutely great. Yeah, like Chrissy said, yeah, Chrissy's not a gamer and she loves the book, so I highly recommend it to y'all. And look out for your notifications. Whenever this pops up next, we're all going to be back here talking about this awesome series. So definitely hit us up.
Yeah. If you guys want, Aleron Kong is on Facebook. He does do, I think every 2 to 3 weeks, he does a live stream, gives people updates on what's going on. He has a website you can go to and purchase merchandise that he has. And then if you go on Twitter at litrpg, you can find him that way too, and follow him that way. The man's making some good moves, and this stuff he puts out is freaking phenomenal. And I need to get off my ass, and I need to buy a Miss Village Mafia t-shirt, because I'm fucking hooked to this shit, and it's not going anywhere till it's over. And according to Aleron Kong, it's never going to be over. He said it the other day, he'll write 50 books if the story keeps working like he wants it to. So also he's trying to get enough people signed with Netflix to do a series on Netflix for.
Dude, so, I was just saying the other day that if this ever came to screen, I would want Netflix to do it, because they would do it absolutely right. I really hope that comes through, because it will be bloody fantastic.
So, all right, everybody. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I just said that needs to happen. Netflix needs to happen.
Yeah. So, everybody, if you guys paid attention, in about 30 minutes, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to grab my beer. I want to grab my cigars. I'm going to put on some music. We'll bullshit in the chat room, and we'll just kick it for the rest of the night. So whoever wants to show up, give me about 15 to 20 minutes. I will start that stream, grab some adult beverages. Let's kick back, relax, and just drink and bullshit and listen to music. So I will see you guys in about 20 minutes. I hope everyone had a wonderful night, enjoyed our conversation. We will be back with part 2 of The Land, and we'll continue this with every book. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Peace.